Hello, my name is Putkonen. Thank you for joining me. Today I'm talking about ceasing conceptual thought. This was highlighted for me again as I was rereading Huang Po. Now, Huang Po is an old Chinese Zen Master from the early 800s, so about 1200 years ago. And I think one of his focuses really was the cessation of conceptual thought. He would point out that conceptual thought is getting in the way. Ultimately, awakening, enlightenment, liberation, pick your term, doesn't matter, is a non-conceptual realization. And so he kind of relayed this as, it's inherently, it's a void. There's no concept, there's nothing there. And so when you're making concepts about it in order to talk about or teach, he goes, this is like adorning jewels on the void. And then when you show it, everyone focuses on the jewels and misses the void entirely. And I thought that was rather an interesting way of putting it. It's kind of like what they would say, it's pointing at the moon, look at the moon, don't stare at the finger. And really, the concepts are a lot like pointed fingers too. And so what happens is people fixate on the finger and don't bother to look where it's pointing. So there's I guess, an obstacle or a obscuring or getting in the way when you are entrenched in concepts and conceptual thinking. But fundamentally, think about it. If something is non-conceptual, I'm kind of pulling a J. Krishnamurti thing here. Let's delve into this together. If something is inherently non-conceptual, can thought ever get there? Can thought grasp that which is beyond concept? Can working with concepts get you to realizing that which is non-conceptual? And this is something you need to directly see for yourself and recognize. So if you really look at, well, yeah, if I've got concepts, it can't really get to that which is non-conceptual. You can read everything you want about what a banana tastes like. You can hear from all the people that have ever eaten a banana and hear all their concepts about what a banana tastes like. But all this will fall short from actually tasting a banana for yourself. Actually eating a banana and tasting it is an entirely different thing than all the concepts about it. And so you need to see this clearly, profoundly. The futility of getting awakening, enlightenment through concepts. Concepts can't touch it. They just point to silence. They point to the void. They point to that which is non-conceptual. Just don't get too buried in the concepts. But if you're trying to give up conceptual thinking and thought, part of it is recognizing when you're doing conceptual thinking. What was the trigger? Why do you think it's needed? Can you let that go? I mean, if you were looking at a tree branch and you find yourself immediately saying to yourself whether it's long or short, why do you need to do that? Why do you need to have a concept of long or short? And even the concept of long and short is totally relative to something else. Long and short compared to what? Shortness doesn't arise by itself, nor does longness. Short and long arise together. That They are a comparison. And so what are you comparing to? Is it something else that you consider long? Is it according to the diameter? Because, if you had, let's say you take pieces of a tree and it's this long. Well, if it's part of the trunk and the width is like this, you might say, well, that's quite short. But if you took a piece of the newest twig that's like really, really thin and that long, you might go, oh, that's quite long. It's the same length. How do we categorize the exact same length as long or short? Because it depends on something else. Could you just look at the branch and just say it's just this? It's as it is. Neither long nor short. Giving up that concept. And a lot of this is recognizing where we conceptualize. Habitually, compulsively, and try to root it out. To basically look for the source and root it out, so to speak. Can we cease labeling? Can we cease critiquing? Perhaps it might help to look at the concepts and just see how relative they are. I mean, if you wanted to talk about high and low, well, that's relative to up and down. Up and down is relative to gravity. Because up, you might go, well, that's always up. While someone on the exact opposite side of the planet would say that's down. The same direction is considered up or down depending where you are on the planet. Up and down gets its meaning due to gravity. And so when you're in space and there's weightlessness and there is no gravity, there's no up or down. Any surface could be considered the floor or the ceiling or a wall. Up and down, high and low, all relative concepts. Relative in that they arise together and they depend on something else. And so that's part of conceptual thought, because you need to make the judgment. You need to make the call. On what am I basing this judgment and assigning this judgment? And it might be interesting to delve into how we do this. Because some people do it all the time, particularly to themselves. I mean, part of this is also due to our conditioning, because as we're growing up and we're learning right from wrong, and there might be punishments of various degrees or whatever, and we're constantly urged to think before we act, and we should think more, and yada yada. But eventually, at some point in childhood, an inner critic develops where you start critiquing and criticizing your own actions before you make a decision, because you're trying to make sure that your parents would be happy with it, so to speak. So their external critiquing and criticism becomes internalized. And we start doing it to ourselves. And this is all within conception, conceptual thought. Can we let that inner critic go? And potentially it could feel like falling into the void, so to speak, because in the end there's nothing to stand on, so to speak. There's nothing to hold on to. Because what we're trying to stand on or hold on to are concepts. And so when you let go of all concepts, there's nothing to hold on to or nothing to stand on. And so some might find this uncomfortable initially. It might feel insecure because we find much of our security in concepts. And so as we give these up, the illusory security that we had is dispelled. Because the concepts themselves never gave us any more security. We just felt more secure through them. Because we could hold on to them or stand on them, so to speak. And so, we need to observe, delve into, watch what goes on within. And see from where the concepts arise. And in seeing, we might be able to root out the cause and stop that conceptual thought. But it is, I think, very important to cease thinking, cease all this conceptual thinking. It makes a very conducive environment for awakening and enlightenment. Because how can you see that which is non-conceptual through the fog of conceptions? The conceptions will always get in the way. Again, it's staring at the jewels and missing the void entirely. It's letting go of these conceptions. It clears the conceptual fog, so that way we might be able to see that which is non-conceptual. So, if you got any questions, comments, please post below. But until next time, thank you much.